Hey guys, this is Paco The Realtor Podcast number 6. I hope everybody's well. Today we're talking about the house on the hill. The house on the hill is probably the most interesting, intriguing, and scary house I have ever shown in my career. And I was young in my career, and it got creepier and creepier as time went. Let me explain. So about 20 years ago, my clients had this idea that they wanted to buy in the high desert because it's extremely affordable. And this is in the early 2000s. So it was. And they wanted land. So we found this house out towards the Apple Valley area, way in there. And after looking at about, 20 properties over a month period, this listing came up. And back in those days, the high desert was part of a different multiple listing service. So I had to pay dues to be part of 2 multiple listing services to get the data. And a lot of those agents up the hill did not like the agents from down the hill because we weren't part of their board, I guess. I don't know. The assumption is you just want to sell your house and you don't care who buys it, but it's not always the case. So anyways, so my client says, hey, I was told by a friend of mine that there's a sign for sale on this property all the way up the top of the hill by the rocks. And this is before, social media and all the data we have on the internet. Back then it was Thomas Guides. So I was like, all right, let me figure it out. And he kind of gave me an idea, and I kept looking and looking. I could not find it. So one day we're looking at 3 properties, and it's already about 5:30 on a Saturday night, and it's starting to get dark. They're in the summer. And he says, let me show you where this property is, because I could never locate it. So he takes me up. So let me paint the picture. We start up off a dirt road. That's the first thing. And the dirt road goes up the hill about a quarter of a mile to this house. The house was built probably in the 50s. For sure it was built in the 50s. Single story. It sits on 3 acres with rocks around it. And you can tell it's vacant. And there's a sign. And the sign says for sale. But the sign is painted. It's like literally painted. It's not like an agent sign or anything. And it has a phone number. And the phone number is a 619 area code, so like San Diego or something. So I call the number, and a woman picks up and says, can I help you? I said, hey, I saw this. I'm a realtor. I'm out here with some clients. Can I see it? And they're like, yes, go ahead and go in. I said, well, what's the gate code or key code or anything? They're like, oh, no, it's unlocked. Okay, so we hang up, and sure enough, the front gate, there was a chain, but it was locked, so we were able to open and swing the gate. Then you drive up a third of the hill all the way up to get to the top. Now, this house has a beautiful view of the valley. No doubt about that. But the first thing you notice is the house is completely painted white. Everything is white. Everything is white, with exception to the shingle on top of the house. But it's all white. White. The driveway in the front is in a circle, so kind of like you could go in a circle and come out, so you don't have to back up. And there's rocks, the rocks that someone picks up. And they were placed there, and they were also painted white. I said, okay. I mean, this house is kind of starting to date itself. But we have no idea what the condition looks like inside. So I go through and I look through the windows, and sure enough, it looks vacant. And sure enough, the front door is completely unlocked. Now, up to this point, it's just weird, but not freaky. And so we go in, and the inside of the house is all white. Old white cabinets, white tile. The chimney is painted white. All the bedrooms are white. Old white curtains. It's just white. And so it's just the oddest thing. But we go through it. My client's intrigued. I don't remember what the price was, but it was like 40% off from any surrounding lot with a house around there. And like I said, a beautiful view. So we start walking around the inside of the house. It's going to need some work. It's definitely dated. Paint, carpet, kitchen, bathrooms. But my client is a contractor. So to him, this doesn't scare him. The roof looks newer. It's about the only thing. So we go to the backyard, and about half the land is usable, and about the other half is not. But you can't see what's over that ridge because of all the boulders. And we're walking and around, and he's like, dude, I got plenty of land to park my trucks. I can get it here. We're putting a plan together. Their son walks up to one of the boulders, and I look at him. I go, hey, your son's climbing up that boulder. You might want to tell him to come down. I don't want to fall. And he calls him, and he goes, Dad, you got to come see this. He goes, Dad, you got to come see this. But he won't tell us what it is. So we walk up to these boulders. On the other side of the boulder are two sheds, still part of this property, that we would have never seen. There's no clear path there. There's no fence. There's no gate. You got to almost climb this rock. One shed has nothing but the metal files. I'm talking hundreds of them. So it looked like a work shed of some kind. The other shed has nothing but belts, leather belts, all kinds of belts. And you could tell they're old and dated. And it's just like, okay, what do they do back here? Then we find a barbecue pit in between these two sheds where you can tell people would, I guess, make fires. It's starting to feel like this isn't adding up. It just feels weird. If you got two sheds, you would have some way to get up there, and there wasn't. We looked for it, and we could not find it. It was almost like they didn't want anybody to find the sheds or know they were there when they were built. And the land is large, so there's quite a few acres. So we start walking around the boulders to see what else we could find, and we find a door. It looks like a door, but it's just lying on the ground. And my client goes to pick it up, and it actually has stairs leading down. So again, in the middle of nowhere, by rocks, next to sheds that you couldn't see, and there's a door that leads with stairs down, and it's starting to get dark. It looked like a bomb shelter, maybe. We don't know. We kind of use our flashlights on our phones to kind of walk down there, but you could tell it hadn't been used in a while. It has this smell. It was musty. It was awful. It was awful. So he gets out of there, and I'm like, okay, I need to ask about that. So we climb down the rocks, go back to the house, and we're sitting there and looking at the house. And he's like, Paco, this house is weird, but I'm very intrigued. I said, okay, see what I can do. So I call up the lady, and sure enough, it's not on the MLS. I start talking, what's the price? What are the terms? And she's very adamant on her price and very adamant as is. Not one repair will be made, no termite, nothing. Nothing will be made on this property. So I ask her about the history. And she gets quiet and says, I can't really disclose anything about the house. So sorry. But it made me think, like, the way she said it is she telling me she doesn't know, or is she telling me she doesn't want to tell me? It's just odd. So I go, okay. So she gives me the information. I go inside. I tell my clients, hey, we need to, here's what she's asking for. So he goes, Paco, come here. So we go to the side yard, and these rocks are in a form of a pentagram, like a devil worship thing. At least that's what we thought. And you could tell, all white again, and it was off to the side. And then on the other side, there was it looked like a big X of the house in rocks also. So then I get the bright idea. I said, let's climb back up to those rocks. So we climb back up to the rocks. We get on top. And it just hits us. This whole house was made to symbolize or mean something. Because from the top of the rocks, with a pomegranate on the left, the X on the right, and the house complete painted white, it looked like it was a symbol, like it was a language. It just looked freaky as hell. And you could tell it was done like that on purpose. So if you're at ground level, you couldn't make it out. They were just painted rocks. But at an elevated, you could totally tell. It just freaked us all out. No neighbors in the middle of nowhere, Apple Valley. We're like, you know what? And this is before everything was on the internet. I'm like, man, something happened here. Let's get the hell out of here. So we go out through the back sliding door to lock up, even though it was all open. And as we're walking out, I just happen to open the closet door leading out the front door. And there's a red circle with a line, like a little line through it. And I was like, spray painted red. I was like, what the hell? So as a joke, I go, watch, every closet's going to have it. Sure enough, every closet in that house had a red circle with a little red line to it. It freaked us out. It's getting dark now. You could hear noises up. Probably was coyotes. We didn't know. But we're like, let's get the hell out of here. So we go to the cars. We go out the gate. I lock it up. And I tell my client, let's go down the hill and then we'll talk about it. As we're going down this hill, his car turns off. Just turns off. It just died. And we're like, what the hell? So now we're going downhill on an elevated hill in the middle of nowhere. And we're already freaking out because of the house. And now his car just died. And he's like, I don't know what it is. This is a newer battery. But luckily, I had jumper cables, so I jumped them. And he turned it on, and we took off, and we went straight down the hill. And we went to, I don't know, it was a coffee shop, or I don't remember what it was. And he looks at me, he goes, my hairs were standing up after we climbed on those rocks and saw the pomegranate. He goes, I have no interest in this house. I was like, I don't blame you. So that's it. We're done. We're not going to buy it. Next day, I get a call from a number, and it's this lady. And she's like, hey, is your client interested? I said, no, they're not interested. No, thank you. And I don't go into any detail. She proceeds to tell me that she needs to sell the house. She'll discount it a further 25%. She just needs to get rid of it. So I ask her, have you had much interest? She says, no. I said, have you seen the house? She goes, yes. I go, nothing strikes you as odd? And she goes, oh no, I inherited this house from my uncle, my dad's brother. And I said, well, I got to be honest with you. That house freaked us out. She says, I've never walked into that house. I said, but you're selling it. I inherited it. I put a sign up and I just want to get rid of it. I said, well, why don't you go and clean it up or do something? She goes, oh no. I go, why not? She goes, I just don't want to walk in. And I tell her, did somebody die? She goes, no. Nobody's died in the house. But my mom told me that my uncle had dogs, new puppies all the time, and they always seemed to be dying. And by the time he died, there was probably over 20 to 30 buried dogs in that backyard. I thought pet cemetery all over again, and I was like, no, thank you. Just thinking about it right now makes my hair stand up. I don't know what happened to that house. I don't care what happened to that house. She wasn't going through a listing agent, so she didn't disclose anything other than her uncle apparently loved to, I don't know what he liked to do with those dogs. Moral of the story is this. If you do this business long enough, you see a little of everything, trust your gut. And our gut told us something was wrong with that property. And let me tell you, it freaked us out. All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoy our podcast number 6 about the house on top of the hill. Next podcast, we're going to be talking about the crash that never came and why it didn't come, because that seems to be a big topic these days. All right, guys. Appreciate it.